Yeah, welcome. This is way bigger than any other panel I've ever done, so this is great. I thank you all for coming. I wanted to welcome you both. Have you either been to the National Book Fest before?
No, I got very lost in it earlier today.
Yeah.
But this is my first experience.
Yeah. What about you?
I have never been to DC before. So this has been an astonishing education for me.
Yeah.
Everywhere you look, there's these kind of buildings that you recognize from the news.
Yeah.
Very exciting.
Oh my. Who here is, this is your first time at the Book Fest? Oh, wow.
People still read.
Yeah. Well, they do right now in this building. I wanted to get started. There's many fans of both of yours here, right? They do.
They stopped applauding.
They
Thank you, sir.
because he wants to hear you talk. Yeah, I understand why. I actually started reading your books. They're very engaging, and they actually have a lot of similar themes. So I noticed humor, history, strong female characters, religion, redemption, mothers, teamwork, and there's honestly like really good dialogue. Like I really, really enjoyed it. So I'm gonna start with you, Shannon, because one of my first questions is like, where did this idea come from? What is the story behind the story?
So the story behind the story, and first of all, thank you everyone for coming and packing into this room. This makes me feel very good. So the story is basically similar to my origin as a writer, which is that I'm sort of a failed historian. I wanted to be a proper historian, and instead of doing that, ended up writing books. And my first love has always been the medieval Islamic world, particularly the Indian Ocean world. And when I was writing Daevabad, I loved doing that, but it was very historically inspired, you know, dealing with myths and fantasies. And when I finished that, I thought to myself, okay, I have enough success now to just write this ridiculously over-researched book. And I even told my publisher, I said this in an email, there's like text proof that it was going to be completely historically accurate except for the plot, which was a great way to destroy my mental peace while trying to figure out what the decking on 11th century vessels would have looked like. But that's what it came from. I really wanted to write something that felt like a love letter to this period in history that I was so enamored with. And a lot of the reason I like it is because this is a period of time where we have a lot of the writings of normal people. We have travelogues, we have merchant letters, we have people griping that they have to pay this amount to their in-laws, we have people complaining in what genuinely sounds like a Yelp review about like the quality of the sailing between the Red Sea and other ports in the Arabian Peninsula. And I love this because it brings history alive. So I knew I wanted to write a book that kind of interacted with that. But more than that, this was my pandemic project that I worked on really between about 4 and 6 a.m. before doing virtual kindergarten, which is a phrase I don't ever want to say again. But it's okay, we'll be back there next year. But anyway, sorry.
Who's been to the John Green talk about vaccines?
No, let's not. Let's keep that one like another 2 years.
Yeah.
But anyway, I wanted to write something that felt joyous and felt like it brought all of this vibrant, colorful community and world to life. So it really started with the world itself and bringing the history alive.
And we'll get into like, you know, the very kick-ass, I shouldn't say that, it's being recorded, the very cool main character, but I wanted to go to you, Joe. Like, I was reading your book and I instantly thought of D&D. Is that where it came from?
Well,
probably not.
Shannon wrote a very ridiculously over-researched book. I wrote a ridiculously under-researched book. So they're a very good compliment to each other, perhaps. I basically had one idea, and that wasn't even my idea, really. It was Tolkien's idea. And I thought I would write my version of Lord of the Rings. And then I did that.
That's just as ambitious as...
Yeah, but having done that, I was then left in this position of, what am I going to do next? And so my career has really been this desperate attempt to find something to write about next. I was approached some time ago by a young adult editor who'd read my adult books and for some reason thought I had a good young adult book in me. And so he said, do you have an idea? The first idea I had was this idea.
Yeah.
The Pope keeps a set of monsters in the basement to solve the problems the righteous are not equipped to tackle. Thank you, Mum.
They came all the way here?
but yeah, maybe. I wouldn't put it past her. But that was self-evidently not at all a young adult idea. That was obviously an adult idea again. So I wrote a different set of young adult books. But this idea, because I hardly have any, stayed on the shelf. And when I needed to write a new book, again, keeps happening, I took that idea down, I dusted it off, combined it with various other concerns that I'd had. I'd always quite wanted to write a book set in real Europe, I suppose you might say. I write in secondary worlds, invented worlds often, but they're kind of Europe with the serial numbers filed off, really, everyone knows that. Let's not
So you don't have to
pretend.
make a new map, I heard you say before.
Yeah, we're all friends here, let's not pretend too much. And so I thought it might be interesting, though, to write in a real Europe, as it were, because there's this wonderful opportunity you have to make jokes about England. And I find wherever I go, jokes about England go down very well. France, Germany,
DC
Spain,
specifically.
DC specifically. Everyone finds the English amusing. I'm not sure why that is exactly. But jokes about England and jokes about German werewolves and things like that, they land very quickly. You don't have to spend too much time world building and explaining. So a version of real Europe, under-researched, obviously. And
You've
then
been to Europe, though.
a couple of times.
Yeah.
I spent some time there.
Some research.
Some research, yeah. I spent a lot of time
The
in
Pope
North
has
Spain.
a Wikipedia, it's fine.
Yeah, when you under-research like me, you just don't have to research that much. No one expects anything from you. It's managing expectations.
Yes.
This is the thing.
Writing this all down.
Yeah.
But as you said, then fun. I wanted to write a book that was fun
Yeah.
and entertaining, that didn't feel like work to read or to write. And that lasted about 3 days in the writing process, and then it became a brutal staring into the void again, like all my other books have been.
It did
For the
not-
writer, not the reader.
Yeah, I was going to say, it didn't come across
For
as
the reader,
void.
hugely entertaining.
Yeah.
I suffer, so you don't have to.
Good. That's the great kind of humor that comes out of suffering, you know?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Best kind.
My daughter, who's here, is going to do comedy, and she was like, my life is too good. What am I going to do? I'm sorry.
I mean, that's what they say about comedians. Whenever somebody compliments the humor in my book, I always think, thanks. They say comedians usually suffer from some form of depression or
Right.
mental illness, and
Yeah, well, let's keep going with humor. But that's actually the first theme I wanted to talk about, because both of your books are very funny, like different pacing of funny, but very funny. And like, it does talk about very personal, very like serious things, but like always like humor shows up. And I was talking to you, Shannon, about how like your book has like hope and humor. And I'm watching One Piece. Any other One Piece fans in here? Yeah, that's right. In my 40s, I decided to start it like a crazy person. But yeah, bonkers. But so like, why is humor so important for you as you're like writing this book?
so this is a hard question to answer. And I feel like a lot of these questions come up when you're discussing your book and you go home and you're like, oh wow, I have some issues I should have thought out before they were maybe asked in public. But I view humor as sort of a coping mechanism. I got your email about the questions while I got off the train, and I took the train down to DC.
I was a little late getting them to them.
I took the train down to DC with a very famous writer, and as we got out, he goes, I wonder if we'll see any of the National Guard on the outside of the building. And I said, don't worry, next year they'll be inside the panels with us. And I don't quite know that he appreciated that, but it's just sort of, it is, I guess it is, I mean, to me, humor feels similar to storytelling, that it's this very human instinct we sort of have all been doing, you know, since the dawn of time. It's how we get along. It's how you sort of take care of each other. You find the silver lining in absolutely awful circumstances. But it's also, it feels, and I would be very curious to see if you feel this way too, I don't really think about it when I'm writing it.
It just comes out.
I guess so. Ironically enough, my mother reads my books, which is
I hope so.
good and bad. Gonna be really bad for the next book. But she always tells me, she's like, you know, it doesn't feel like you're the one who wrote it when you read that, which is great, because there's some scenes in that I don't want her to ever think about me. But she always says the humor stuff pulls her right out of the story. She's like, it's you, it's, you know, your sarcastic and your rudeness. And I'm like, thank you, it's critically acclaimed rudeness now. But it's like that, and I like seeing that in stories. I feel like fantasy as a genre can take itself really seriously. And that's just, I don't think that's most people's lives, and we're all kind of like looking for, you know, some light in the darkness. And I like to think that you can bring that into books, even as you deal with very dark subjects.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, you talked about Tolkien and like the very seriousness
Yes.
of that. And like, if the only thing I ever read was your website bio, I like, you all should read it.
Some of my best work,
Yeah. It's
without a doubt.
I keep on blowing it. Yeah. So I know that you put humor in your writing. Like, if I only read that, and I'm reading your book, and there's just like joke after joke after joke. It's like you're a comedy screenwriter, and you just want to get as many jokes on one page, like Naked Gun, like as you can. So like, why were you trying to get so many jokes in Devils, or is it like Shannon? It just pours out of you like sweat.
It's an enduring image.
These are the
Yes.
best questions
Yes.
you've ever been asked.
They are.
Like
Thank you.
Yeah. I suppose, as you say, you know, I was obsessed with Tolkien as a kid, and played quite a lot of Dungeons and Dragons and other
See, that's where I came from.
role-playing games with
Yeah.
interesting shaped dice, things of that kind.
Yeah.
Drew a lot of maps. I was into all that stuff.
Yeah.
The fantasy of
Into
that time.
back then.
Back then, oh yeah. Well, now I'm one of the cool
Yeah.
guys.
I'm literally playing D&D on Tuesday, but continue.
But I suppose a lot of the fantasy I read back then was, as you say, quite solemn, quite serious. You know, imitated Tolkien very much in going for this mythic hugeness,
Yeah.
and could become maybe even a little bit pompous.
Describing every blade of
Times.
grass.
Yeah, I mean, it could get a little bit self-serious, you know. And then as I got older, I started to read all kinds of other things. Writers like James Elroy, Larry McMurtry, even writers like Mikhail Bulgakov, because I'm very highbrow on
I don't know who that is.
names like that, you know. And so writers with all kinds of strange and different senses of humour, writers often who had, you know, a strong point of view kind of voice to their writing, who really got you into the heads of the people and the way those people saw the world, this kind of unique way of looking at the world they had. And a big part of that often was a unique sense of humour. And that was the sort of writing I found I was really reacting to. So that's what I always wanted to do as a writer. And I think, you know, unwittingly, when I first started writing, I ended up with this kind of tongue-in-cheek tone that I hadn't really been intending to do, but it just happened. I think it's very hard to be funny, as you're probably realising as you listen to me. It's very hard just to be funny at the drop of a hat, but
Yeah.
when I'm editing and when I'm going over what I've written, I'm kind of never trying to cut out anything that I find funny. I'm trying to sharpen and improve the timing on things and make them more funny. And I suppose I've always responded a lot to laughs. It feels like there's no bad time. People sometimes ask, how do you balance, you know, the violence or the tragedy with the humour? And I make no effort to do that. As with so many aspects of my writing.
You literally have a scene where there's dead bodies reanimated and they're just farting.
Well,
Like, I want you all to get to that part of the book.
I mean, you're a
Among other
scientist.
very
I think that's
tasteful.
accurate.
We
to a
have
certain
done
degree.
science studies on shortwave about farting and poop and hemorrhoids that came out on Friday. If you want to check out shortwave, we talk about if you scroll too long on the toilet, 46% more likely you're going to get hemorrhoids. So
Wow.
heads up, everyone, stop doing it.
Something to bear in mind when you
yes.
get home.
Yes, that's right.
Public information.
Bum, bum, Speaking of seriousness, though. No, but you were saying, like, yeah, like we use humor for these like serious things. I want to talk about The Devils real quick, where you have all
Yeah.
these like very ridiculous characters that are like crude and swearing and they're, you know, stealing things, and then they have these flashbacks where they're just like, it's very sad and it's very heartfelt and it's very, you know, trying where they're coming from, you know, and like I want to point out that, you know, the Devils, in the first sentence, you find out that the Pope is female. Literally the first sentence of this book. And so like, there's the other theme that I want to talk about are strong females, right? Powerful, complex female characters, women in your book. Why, Joe, did you decide to suddenly make the Catholic Church run by women?
Long been a dream of mine. I looked at the list of popes and I thought, wow, the men have really had a lock on this so far. I suppose...
Did you watch Conclave? Anyway, spoilers, I don't want to...
I did see that,
yeah.
I suppose, you know, the first series that I wrote, as I say, my kind of take on Tolkien. Tolkien, not known for his female characters on the whole.
No.
I read The Hobbit to my daughter a while back, and...
There's a wife in that book.
I think there's a couple of mentions.
Tom Bombadil, that's it.
Wow.
A couple of mentions. Yeah, there's
Heads
not
up.
a lot of female characters in there. And I think, you know, unwittingly, when I wrote my first series, well, the word sausage fest has been used now and again. Unkindly, I feel, but not entirely inaccurately.
Not unfair.
To describe those books. And so I felt like, you know, even while I was writing them, I could have done a bit better from the point of view of the female characters. There's nothing wrong with writing about men, but I've heard that some of the population are female, up to 50%.
Maybe even more.
Some studies.
Slightly.
Yeah, maybe
some
even
areas.
more. So I felt like, just to represent the world as it is, it's interesting to kind of give a bit of thought. You know, it's very easy to write a scene in which there's a blacksmith, and obviously a blacksmith is a guy, big burly guy, beard, apron, and on the other side of the square there's a merchant, and the merchant obviously is a guy with like a hat and, you know, money,
throwing
stuff.
Fish.
And, you know, there's an innkeeper obviously is a man. And before you know it, you've kind of populated your entire scene with men without really giving it any thought. And that can become just quite a bland kind of setting. The feeling is of all the relationships being very similar. And especially if you work in quite a patriarchal version of Europe, as we're all familiar with, you end up with these scenes of lots of old men talking to old men, and occasionally a young man will enter the round. And it becomes interesting just to have that variety of different types of people. You get different kinds of relationships. Do you get mother-son relationships sometimes rather than this endless kind of father-son dynamic? It just gives you a lot of different diversity to the way you're writing, the style of characters you have. And also, you know, if the smith is a woman, there's a question like, oh, how did she end up being the smith? Did her husband die? Did she inherit the forge? Happened all the time, in the Middle Ages, in fact. Did she turn out to be brilliant at making barrels? Revolutionary new technology was invented. Suddenly ideas are kind of sparked just by giving it some thought. And so I suppose since I wrote those first 3 books, I've always been trying to find ways to get women into the story, not necessarily for some high political kind of aim, but simply from the point of view of good writing. Feels like there's no downside to it. And so when I was writing these new books, I was thinking about how will I get some women kind of naturally into the story in powerful positions. Female saviour, female priesthood, female church felt like it fit the bill. It would just be a slightly different look to that old guys with beards thing that we're all so familiar with.
Yeah, and you have a fair amount of like different kinds of women also in your book. And I want to turn to Shannon because like your main character, Amina, she's a middle-aged woman who is moving away from a career from the sea, you know, being a cool pirate, into like having this calmer, sort of retired life. I identify as also a middle-aged woman going to a second career, you know, and I really appreciated that. Like, what made you really want to tell her story specifically?
So I had really 2 aims of coming up with that character, and one is the academic answer, one is the personal answer. And the academic answer is that, again, I talk about, one of my big things is how are we presenting history to a popular audience? Because I do write in the real world, and I think we as authors, especially those of us who are going to have our books in all the bookstores around, which is a privilege, we need to think about how we present the past, because a lot of, I think, the world in general right now has a problem with what they believe is their idealized version of the past. And a lot of people, when they think, okay, what was Europe or what was the medieval period, it always is like white people in castles in the snow, and there's these feudal estates, and I guess maybe over there other people were living different lives, but it was probably terrible. And when I set out to write my books, I want to ground them in history because I'm aware that a lot of people read these kind of things and that informs what they think of the past, even if they don't want to say that, right? There's a reason when certain big fantasy projects come out and they feature sexual assault. What do people say? Oh, well, that's how it was back then. Well, who put that image in people's minds of that's how it was back then? So with this book, I really wanted to challenge that because in this particular period that I write about, which is like sort of the 10th through 13th century, largely in North Africa, what we call the Middle East, West Asia, women are everywhere. They are teachers, they are scholars, and they are doing scandalous stuff that I ended up bringing in my book. I mean, there's a great one. This was something that I get, people will often tell me, like, how could this character have had so many spouses? Don't you know? Divorce was not allowed. I'm like, oh no, that's a Christian thing. Divorce was very, very common. In fact, divorce was so common that we have letters from religious authorities in Mecca telling older women that they need to divorce this other man because he's not appropriate, and they write back and say, no, I'm going with that one. We have stories of noble women shacking up with sailors as they crossed the Red Sea, but you know, they made it appropriate because they got married and therefore it's all okay. And we don't see stories like this of women in the past. We don't see that there were people who trained as doctors, there were mathematicians, there were poets. We definitely don't see them often of Muslim women. So when I set out to write this book, I wanted to show those voices and show different kinds of ways of being a woman in the past, in the present, and really let that be there. Because then that sort of brings the personal aspect, which, again, sometimes when I get asked, they're like, why do you write female characters? I don't know. I mean, we exist. I am a woman. I have daughters. I have a particularly fierce mother who got brought into that book more often than she probably knows. But it was also the personal aspect is Amina is dealing with essentially working parent guilt. Again, the questions you get asked on a public stage with hundreds of people of, how did you feel about, like, what about the scenes when she has to leave her daughter to go work? I'm like, listen, my daycare struggles are none of your business. So I wanted to examine that as well, to really write a book that parents and mothers could sort of empathize with, because I think that's another thing, parenthood, motherhood in particular, has always been, the most emotional core of many people's lives. I did a lot of research into medieval magic at this, and I remember there was one thing that really struck me, and it was an amulet. It was designed you would put it underneath where your baby was sleeping, and it would help them sleep. And I saw that, and I went, so they've been terrorizing us forever. Like, to the point you're still using magic to try to, like, please just make the nap transition happen. And I kind of wanted to bring those elements in, and not just talking about female characters, but different ways of being a female character and different ways of being a mother, of being older, and kind of have that represented.
I wanted to say thank you for that, because like I really like having somebody who's so formidable, and she really was like this just like pirate, scary, tall, kind of woman, but she's also a very caring mother. And like I literally like read a page in the second chapter and just started crying, and and like texted my daughter, and I was like, I love you. But
because it does something to you, right?
Yeah, like, it hit me hard.
Yes, I remember when my first daughter was born, and I'm like 5'2". I'm not a fierce person at all. And she was maybe like 10 days old, and I'm pushing her in her stroller, and I was like, I would kill for you. Like I couldn't.
Like,
I was having like these really weird, like I would like flay a man alive, and it was clearly like. Maybe there's some hormonal issues going on there. But it was weird. I was like, that's the most violent I've ever felt in my life. And I had just made the transition to motherhood.
And was that important for you to show that Amina is this like very, I think, scary woman, and like she has this persona as a pirate, but also she's this like very caring mother, always thinking about her daughter?
I think, you know, I was more trying to show, I made those sort of character decisions of like she's big and she's scary. One, because there are some women like that discussed in the accounts, and I wanted to get their voice. And then I guess I was just writing the motherhood aspect, and I was trying to write that as very natural, and I think they kind of just came together.
Yeah. I want to go to my next question where both of your novels, and I think many authors this happens where they get kind of adapted, or they're going to maybe be adapted to the screen. And I wanted to talk to both of you about like, what does it feel like for the possibility of having like something that came in your brain just out of nowhere be acted by actual human beings? So I'm going to go with Shannon, you first.
I would never go that far in my head.
No, you never thought it was going to happen.
I believe hope, and I think I even wrote this line into one of my books, hopes are great when they're like, don't take this as life advice, this is terrible, terrible, but hopes are great like at the floor, because then you can't be disappointed.
Low expectations.
So
this is what I'd say in school all the time.
People that was like, oh, how's your film adaptation? I don't know. I know nothing about it. I don't want to know anything about it because then I'll get my hopes up.
Right.
And then, so I don't really go there, I guess, but you know, kind of what you're saying in terms of seeing things alive, that makes me think of fan art.
Oh my
which
gosh.
is also, I remember getting my first piece of fan art, and it was just, I felt so awed as a creative person to have inspired another creative person. It's just like
you're
a feeling
I could
like
never have drawn this.
No, I can do a really good stick figure, and that's about it.
What about you, Joe? Any possibilities of, you know, real people making this book?
You never know. It is possible.
It's possible.
I mean, I suppose as an author, my experience anyway is, you know, we all contain two wolves.
What are the wolves?
Yeah, what are the wolves?
One of the wolves says, this is absolute rubbish.
Yes. Okay.
You're pathetic.
Yeah.
You're awful. This is embarrassing. Why are you here? Why are you typing?
Those are the demons that
You're
K-pop
shaming
demon
yourself.
hunters told me not to listen to. That's the Saja boys. Don't listen to them.
You do have a teenage daughter?
No, I love that movie. I made her watch it. She watched it with me. Thank you. Thank you.
The other wolf in my case is slightly more critical of me. The other wolf is the one that says,
No.
you're amazing, this is so good, this will revolutionize the world of fantasy, this will change everything.
Tolkien who?
Exactly. Wait, who, Tolkien?
Who don't yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you have those two things in kind of going at the same time. So, I mean, it's always, in a way, incredible to think that anyone reads this rubbish I dreamed up in the middle of the night.
Like at
Oh,
least
easy.
5 of them.
So, some of them. I know. What's wrong with you lot? Enjoy this stuff. So you're always kind of amazed that anyone likes it or takes it seriously. But yeah, I mean, obviously it's another step past even that, to imagine people spending tens of millions of dollars to realise some of this nonsense in front of you.
Yeah.
The idea of people actually, you know, playing the characters. The thing is, that happens a long way down the road of a potential
Right, so it hasn't come to
adaptation.
fruition, so you're just like, low expectations?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No,
So
and
no
indeed-
production spoilers. This is a question from my boss. She put it in there.
well, sorry to
At
disappoint
NPR, I want a scoop.
your boss, I suppose. I've been involved with a few different adaptations of my own stuff, and a few different adaptations of other
Claymation?
people's stuff as well.
No?
No
That would be
claymation
cool.
yet, but then that would have had to.
Oh. That's the demons. They're like, no claymation.
There we go. It's back.
They want real people.
It would have had to get past the point of being a script to reach claymation. And most of the stuff I've worked on has kind of got to script point and not that much further. A lot of time in writers' rooms, wrestling with
Have you gotten to
people.
read a script?
Sorry?
Have you gotten to read a script?
I mean, I tend to write the scripts.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know, which
You're
is...
like, I need to go that far.
No,
that's
no,
possibly
I
why they haven't been made yet. Yeah, so
All right.
I've ended up being forced into the writing of them.
Well, let's end on a high then. This is my
Yes.
last question that Shannon wrote for me. And I think it's a really good question that I can't believe I didn't think of, but like, there's so many fans in the room. This right here, this is very engrossing book, is going to be a part of a trilogy, right? So Shannon, I'm gonna ask you first, tell me about the next one. What can you tell us about the next one that you're working on?
So I was technically not told not to do this.
Great.
But
ask for
yes.
forgiveness later.
There's no email saying, don't tell people that the sequel is coming out in May, and that it's called The
streaming.
Tapestry of Fate. Yes, yeah, so that nobody hears it online. But yes, so the sequel to that will come out in May, and it's called The Tapestry of Fate. And for people who are reading it and were very patient, I apologize. I wrote a book about motherhood, and then it published the same week as I had a baby, because God is testing. And so a little bit delayed, but now it's coming out.
So is it finished, completely finished?
No, I'm working on the third book in the trilogy right now.
Okay.
But the second one is finished.
Yes.
Second one's finished.
Yes.
Edited, done, totally
It's
done.
copy edited. Yes.
So
It has
nice.
acknowledgements. I wrote those. They're done.
That's a nice feeling.
Oh. Woo! Yeah, that's very. Joe, now tell us your accomplishments.
Oh jeez.
How productive have you been?
Wow, you're like account for every minute on your flight
You're not my
across the
mother.
Atlantic.
She's over there, right?
Yeah, she's over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm working on the next one. I'm working on the next one.
This is also going to be like a trilogy.
There is a
series?
contract in which the number 3 is mentioned.
Fantasy always
has
has
my signature
trilogies.
on
What
it.
is up with that? I don't
No, it's a
know.
beginning, a middle, and an end.
Oh, that does make sense.
Yeah, I've got to write another 2, and I've written most of the next one. There's only about
By most, like,
there's about 4,000 words left to write.
ooh.
And when your books are as long as that, that's not very much. I can tell you. So it's mostly done, but the draft is terrible.
That's one of the
people-
wolves.
That's one of the
The
wolves.
wolves.
That's the good wolf telling
Yeah,
me that.
don't, yeah.
Generally, my first drafts are not great. I don't know how to develop that thought. The first drafts are bad.
That's what editing is for. It's okay.
Exactly.
It's okay.
That's what the
Yes,
first draft
yes,
is for.
Yes.
So I need to now go back and find out what the book is that I've written, and then write that book rather than the one I have written. So there's quite a lot of work.
I've been listening to the audiobook. It's very good. You should listen to it. So,
Yes,
and
that
then
will
it'll get your ideas flowing.
Make me feel much better about the whole exercise.
Yeah, he's very good.
Stephen Pacey.
Yeah. I want to thank both of you, and we talked about this. We wanted to give as much time as we could to you all fans, because there's a lot of you here. So I want to thank both of you for talking with me, and hopefully you had fun. And let's give them a round of applause.
And can we give you a round of applause
No.
as well? No, we are.
And my boss will be very happy. Listen to Shortwave,
Yeah.
the science podcast at NPR. I am one of the hosts, and I'm a real scientist. I don't know why they got a physicist to do this panel, but it's because I watch One Piece. So if you all have any questions, you can come on up. There are these mics right here, and you can go ahead and line up. Did any of you see Gina Davis, by the way? I'm also Gina. I saw her in the bathroom. That's the first nervous feeling I felt. This is the second most nervous, but I didn't say hi to her, though. I should have been like, I'm Gina, too. All right, we're going to open it up for any questions. Again, you can line up. Real quick, though, is my daughter here? Because they were supposed to bring her in. Dory, can you just say, hi, Mom? Damn it. Okay, sorry. All right, you can go ahead and go first. What is your question?
Hi, my question is for Joe.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
I love the way you write cowardice.
I love that question. Next. Continue. Sorry.
I love the way you write cowardice and betrayal.
Write what you know, they say.
There's a lot of points where it's frustrating to read somebody who is just running away. But I never felt like that in The Devils. So I was curious, what do you try to keep at the core of a character who is cowardly and betraying? Like, how do you make that entertaining and not frustrating?
That's a good question.
Interesting question. I wish I had an answer as good as the question is. I mean, I think with any character, I don't know if it's a secret. The only kind of way I know to do it is to try and put yourself in the head of the person and make it believable and try and give them motivations that make sense so that, the actions feel believable and result from a kind of a path that has got them to that point. I suppose I was always a bit frustrated by the very heroic characters you can get in epic fantasy, you know, who will always do the right thing at the right time for the right reasons and often with a heroic outcome. And I wanted to kind of pull those things apart and say, what if your wonderful heroics have an appalling outcome? What if, you know, you do the wrong thing for the right reasons? What if you do the right thing for the wrong reasons? And so I kind of like those characters who are a whole mixture of different flaws. Sometimes the flaw is the very thing that, you know, makes them do an amazing heroic thing at the right moment. And sometimes it's the one that means they snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. I've just always been interested in that kind of person.
Yeah. Also, I love Nigamo Casca. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You're so right.
Oh.
Thank you. Cheers.
You are next.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
I didn't even know you wrote books. I was hoping you could sign my audiobook, so I got a copy downstairs just in case. Unfortunately, Joe, you still have books. Your books are all sold out, so good job.
Oh, wow, look at that.
My question for both of you is, I know especially for you, Joe, like when you're contractually obligated to write a trilogy, sometimes there's still ideas there and they spin off as their own singular standalone novels.
Oh.
How do you feel, for both of you, how do you feel like returning to a story that you feel like is not quite accomplished, not quite finished, but there's plenty of other worlds and stories to tell? How do you feel like you can stay within the same world for so long?
I'm going to go with you, Shannon. You first.
You're like a plant.
Yeah.
Quite human.
By Joe's mother.
No, you know, it's interesting because I often get, you know, people ask me, and at every event I go to, so when are you returning to Davidabad? And I don't know. I feel like I have so many stories I want to tell, and there's not as much time to tell them. Whereas I think I would like to return, but not quite yet. And I think it's kind of like in fantasy, you invent these vast worlds. And of course, if you invent a vast world, you can place many different stories in them. So I think it's something that, like, personally for me, like, I'll maybe do it one day. But for right now, I have contractual obligations, to finish one trilogy. And then after this, because the research for that book broke me, I am writing secondary worlds, and we're going to stick with that and with making things up for a little while before returning to anything.
Joe, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one. If you have kind of some level of success with one world and one series, there's always this kind of gravity to continuing to write there, which to some degree you've got to resist a little bit. I feel as though as a writer you need to always be trying to break some kind of new ground with each book. You don't want to do something totally weird and different because people will kind of get a bit annoyed with you probably. But I feel like you've got to keep yourself interested. If you're not interested, you can't expect a reader ever to be interested. And so I try to avoid kind of prequels and things that very specifically pick up stuff I've done before. I try to avoid writing the same characters over and over because I think readers might think they want that, but over time they gradually just kind of wander off to more interesting and exciting things. So you've got to, if you're writing in the same world, in some way keep moving forward. Some different style of book, some different character, some different focus. Although every writer probably circles the same concerns and the same ideas and the same character types sometimes because we are who we are and we're kind of interested in the things we're interested in. We tend to come back and pick things apart over time.
You can always come back like way later, like Asimov. He just like connected all of his books at the very end. He's like, I don't know what to do. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephen Pacey.
Yes. If I can just throw, I feel bad you said I know the books were sold out. I have book plates I can sign for people, so you can still come to the signing and I will have something for you. So if you can have that,
Will you both sign the audiobooks?
I'll sign the audiobook.
It's just like,
you're holding up like a
say your
very
names.
blurry thing. Are those headphones?
Headphones.
I have really bad handwriting, but if you want that, all right.
It's the novelty for me.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. What is your question?
Hi, so my question is for Joe. Loved The Devils. This is probably one of my favorite books of all time.
Thank you, sir. Wonderful question.
Yeah, last question. Last question. Yeah.
One of the many things I loved is just the characters that you created and the character writing that you did. And
I like this guy. I'm really enjoying
Yeah,
this.
dialogue.
It's a great
He's
question.
feeding the wolf.
Yeah, he is.
I I got my favorite character very early on reading this. I have to know, who was your favorite character when you were writing this book?
Ooh. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting when people ask about favourites in general. I'm kind of not a big believer in favourites because
you have more than one child.
yeah, maybe that's it.
I have favorites. I have one child.
They say you're not supposed to have a favourite child, but really it's whichever one is annoying you the least
Yes.
at any given moment. And the same's true with characters to a certain degree. I mean, I hate all the ones I'm currently writing. I love all the ones I've finished writing about. With the Devils, I guess, often there are secondary characters who have a very strong voice, a very intense and almost larger-than-life characters who serve a certain purpose, who are kind of a running gag often, who have one kind of feature they're built around, and they're quite easy to write often.
Like that grandchild that kept swearing.
Yes.
Yeah, in the bakery.
Exactly.
Get to that point.
They're easy to write, whereas the ones who actually hold the weight of the plot and you have to kind of develop and have a proper arc are much more difficult to write, although you can't have the story without them. So I enjoy a character like Viga to write, say, because she's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And you write one time, you don't have to revise it much, it's very straightforward, it's stream of consciousness, but you don't have to achieve a lot in those sections, whereas the characters who are actually holding the weight of the story, much tougher often to write, I find.
Mine, hands down, was Baron Picard. The second he came on, I was like, he is going to be my favorite. He is going to be my favorite character.
Oh,
Like those dumplings, huh?
so nice.
My question is for Shannon. So in Amina book 1, we have kind of this framing of she's telling the story to a scribe, which worked amazingly in the audiobook. And by the end, we know the identity of the scribe, and it sounds like they're going to be pulled into the story. So is book 2, however much you could say, going to have a kind of different tone or
What a good question.
format?
Yes, without spoiling things, that character returns. Sort of the whole trilogy is her telling her story. I wanted it to feel like she was, at a tavern and was like, listen, she's a sailor. She's telling stories. So that character will return. But book 2 took a very different direction. I wanted to kind of stretch my creative legs a bit. So we have the voice of another creature who ends up, I wouldn't use the word, well, maybe antagonist. So it is bringing in a different element of how, I was kind of struggling to, I don't know how much to blurt out the whole plot.
You do
Books
it.
that's not
you
even
do whatever
published.
you feel comfortable with.
But I found in writing that I had to take a different voice and a different structure for the novel. And weirdly, it felt like one of the best things I had ever done. So in 18 months, or not 18 months, I can't do math. But I'll get to talk about that at another point. But yes, that character will be back. I really enjoyed doing that. One of the things I really like about the text from these periods is that they are often written with this very personal tone. Like, everybody's heard of Ibn Battuta, right? Please, I hope so. You're an educated group. And he's funny. People think, oh, he's this famous scholar. We're not supposed to curse here. But he's kind of a jerk. We'll use the word jerk. And he travels around and he's like, ugh, your boat's dirty. You don't know how to clean. You don't know, that island is just, they didn't give me the proper respect. And I love it, right? Because of course, everybody knows somebody like that. And I wanted to keep that engaging tone of telling a story.
I'm very excited to hear that it's coming out for my birthday month.
Oh, happy birthday.
Definitely not coming out on May 7th, yes.
What? What is your question?
My question's also for Shannon. Your story basically starts with the adventures over. How much of that did you have in your head before you started writing, and how much came up organically as you proceeded?
When I first started conceiving of the story, many years ago, I really wrestled with whether or not to tell her story of how she became a pirate or the aftermath. And weirdly, as I was trying to figure out how I wanted to tackle the character, a lot I wanted to do a character closer to my own age, because everything in fantasy is like you're 17 and a beautiful wisp. And we're not all
And you're so
17-year-olds.
optimistic.
Yes, you're so optimistic.
And you think life is great.
Speak for yourself. I'm still
Yeah.
beautiful wisp.
But so I wanted to, but a lot of it came, I wanted to tell a story. I knew I wanted to write a very devout, in her own way, Muslim character. And I didn't want to write her descent into things. I wanted to write about how she climbed up and made a life for herself after that. So a lot of it was pulling from that, whereas, you know, the traditional tale would be, I would have sold this as a YA fantasy of the plucky 17-year-old sea captain, and we've had enough of those. So.
Thank you. It was one of my favorites. I loved it.
Thank you.
It's your question.
This question's for Shannon. In Amina's story, it seems that there might be hints that it took place in the same world as the David Bad trilogy. Can you confirm and tell us a little bit about the relationship between the two series?
Damn, I come to Washington, D.C., and they're like, confirm!
Yes.
But they are, because I meant them to feel like they take place in our world, in, you know, real-life cities. So yes, they're meant to be in the same. I have a little bit of an aside in the third book I'm writing right now, where you see a jinn character, and Amina does not like him. And he's saying something like, oh, we have this city called Deva, and she just shuts him up. But I wanted you to feel like you can read both. You don't have to read one or the other to understand it, but if you have, you might kind of enjoy little hints.
Oh, wow. Thank you. What is your question?
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Take your time.
So, first off, I just wanted to say that, like, I'm sorry.
No, it's
Sorry,
okay.
guys.
We're awe-inspiring. No worries.
Okay. So I kind of want to be an author a bit when I'm older, and I was wondering, how do you write like long chapters or like semi-long? Because in my experience, when I've been in, it's only been like 500 words, and that obviously cannot make a chapter.
I mean, you know, I go back to what you were saying before. I think a lot of times when you're first starting out with writing, just let yourself write. Don't go back and fix it. Like, it's just kind of like you're figuring out what you're doing. So when you're writing those long chapters, right now you're saying, oh, it's going to be a long chapter. You don't know that. You might end up writing it and saying, hey, I think there's a middle section where I would part it. So I think just kind of get the story out, get the bones of the story out, and then really think about where is the pacing? Where, if I was reading this at night, where would I want a natural stopping point?
What would you say, Joe?
Yeah, and it all
You can
depends
talk
on
now.
thank you so much.
Yeah.
It all depends on the style and the voice you're kind of going for. I mean, there's nothing wrong with 500-word chapters if that works. If that tells the story you want. I mean, you could tell a story in kind of very short, mosaic-like bits. I've seen literary fiction that's written in that way. So if that is the way that works and that's the way that tells the story, then great. There's no wrong way of doing it.
Also, sorry, a lot of people are just gonna get angry at me for this, but I actually haven't read your guys' book. So like, where would you decide to like? Where do you want me to start? Because I feel like I should read your guys' books. Because I've been at the top.
They're the beginning of 2 trilogies. I say start here. That's what. And these books are physically here, and this has a really cool cover. I just want to this is one of my favorite covers.
But the cover of mine is bad, is that what you're saying?
Yeah. This one's for Halloween. So so read this one first, and then Halloween.
The shiny skull has just been reflected at me this entire time.
Yeah. I will say the images inside his books are really nice too. So
Shout out to Joel Daniel Phillips. Is he in the room somewhere?
So I would start
Over
there,
there.
honestly.
The artist. There you go.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, look at that. What is your question, sir? Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure. This is for both of you. What are your favorite books or writers that you like to read that you think would surprise your fan base to hear that you spend your time with?
Surprise.
See, this is the question, that when you go to events, I always tell myself, write down a list of books and authors, because you will get the question and then you'll forget everything you've ever read.
Yeah.
Of people we like.
All right, I'll go with one.
You go,
while
you
you're
go.
thinking. Shelby Foote, the military historian, narrative history of the American Civil War.
Wow.
Can't go wrong with Shelby Foote. I mean, they say supposedly that it's not all that historically accurate. I'd say the same about the Devils.
You could. It's all, the author has said so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, Shelby Foote's a historian who has a kind of real, well, he was a novelist also, so he has this real kind of novelistic eye for character and event, and the American Civil War is just such a fascinating kind of conflict where you see the birth of modernity, and I just find it a fascinating period. So that is a love of mine.
You didn't ask me, but I will answer. Okay. Garth Nix, who wrote Sabriel. I love that book. I've given it to a lot of my other physicist friends, and they're like, this is a dumb book. And I'm like, but I love it. And a 17-year-old girl and necromancy. And it's one of my favorite books, and none of my friends like it.
I don't know if any of the, I'm trying, everything I come up with, I'm like, that's not surprising, that's not surprising. I guess I won't throw out all the titles, but oddly enough, I was a science fiction fan before I was a fantasy fan, and I would love to write it one day, except then I have to find out more information.
I can be your
don't want
science
to.
advisor.
Well, so I am a big fan of like all the like Star Trek novelizations. Or, like,
Next Gen?
No, I am DS9 to the core.
Oh, go Cisco.
So that is.
I'm a Next Gen, but I do love DS9.
But yes, I burned through a lot of Star Wars and Star Trek novelizations when I was younger.
Thank you so much.
Gold Ducat FTW.
I love Gold Ducat.
He's a great character.
You all should watch Deep Space Nine.
I am so nervous.
Don't be nervous.
Shannon, my friends actually recommended The Adventures of Amina to me, and I read it over summer and immediately fell in love. Was there a favorite part or nautical fact that you got to include in Amina, and can we expect any magical surprises from Piasim in future installments?
Piasim will be there. He is my, we go back and forth, is my idiot cat who was based on one of my cats who has unfortunately since passed. But I love a good cat in a book, and I love a derpy cat even more. Nautical facts.
I have one for you if you want.
I just learned a lot of awful things. But no, I guess I'm trying to think of something interesting that like my first thought is like, you could drink vinegar to cure seasickness, and that's not gonna help anyone in this
No,
room.
that would help some people.
Well, there you go.
I think that's great.
No, I just learned, if anything, I learned a lot of nautical facts, but I still have like trauma associated with the nautical thing, because there's like 2 scholars in the world who know about these books, know about these ships and everything. But I'm trying to think of something else interesting that I learned. It's not nautical, but my favorite text to use for research was this, is called The Book of Charlatans, and is it a 13th century trickster's manual? And everybody's like, oh, that sounds interesting. You have no idea. There is hundreds of recipes of how to make like fart gas from your armpit that knocks people out. There's instructions on how to make like fake snakes pop out of tombs so you can bring like treasure seekers there and then they die and you rob them. All sorts of things about like how to pretend to be Jesus floating on a river, like detailed instructions on what to put on your feet
From the
so that you'll
13th century?
float. Yes. And what's better, there's this whole section on like how to train an ape to act like a human at prayer, so then people will see him and they'll feel really bad for him, and they'll be like, yes, he's not truly an ape, he's an ensorcelled Indian prince, and he just needs money so that he can I mean, the cups game, like you guys live in DC, I'm from New York, like everybody knows the cups game, right? That's there. And I love it because the person narrating it, you can't tell if he believes it. He wrote this book to essentially entertain his ruler, and he's like, I know all the tricks, so this is how to get past them. But you read that and you're like, you made this up, right? Like you made at least half of this up. And I love that because this is hundreds of years old, and it's not what we associate with the medieval period, but it's so human. And so I learned a lot of terrible things, but useful maybe one day.
That is amazing. Do you have any nautical facts?
Nautical ones.
You live on an island.
Or fart gas.
Highly specific nautical ones.
Yeah.
I do not.
When you talked about the records, there was a paper that just came out about milky seas. For the last 400 years, there's this thing that happens in the ocean where it's just like looks like glowing water at night, and there's records of this. Anyway, you should look it up. Question. I don't want to take your time. We have 5 minutes left.
Gotcha. I'll do this pretty quick. So there's been a little talk of Tolkien, and one of the things I was thinking about was names. So how do you all approach names? does it usually like strike you, or did you spend a whole lot of time workshopping things like the Church of the Holy Expediency, which still makes me laugh every time I think about it?
It was like Boggle. No?
Yeah, I mean, names are really important in fantasy. I think a good name can kind of do some of the world building work without any effort whatsoever. You really can't beat a really good name on a character. Tolkien obviously is amazing at it, but he invented whole languages, and I frankly haven't the patience for that kind of thing. I suppose with the Devils, some of the names kind of come to you very quickly and feel exactly right, and almost the concept for a character or a thing starts with the name, and then you build out from the name. Sometimes you might have an idea for a character and the name doesn't quite seem to fit. And often in a book, if I've got a character that's not working very well, changing the name can be one way to find a slightly different way in somehow. And so yeah, changing the name can suddenly change the feel of the character, which seems bizarre, but it really can do. And that can make a character suddenly have a trait or a way of talking or a kind of different personality that suddenly seems to fit them and fit into the story better. So there's no one-size-fits-all thing to it. I suppose if you're working in a version of Europe, then you obviously have a lot of cultural stuff to draw from. A lot of Williams. All kinds of stuff you can draw from. You know, is it a Germanic root? Is it an Italian root? Is it a kind of Spanish one? And that gives you a lot of stuff to draw on. With a secondary world where you're inventing from scratch, you have to think a bit more about what's the kind of sounds, the sort of similar tone to a group of names that give them a sort of cultural sense. But yeah, it's a fascinating area. There's no one answer, I don't think.
Yeah, that's one of those things that I think too hard about.
Yeah.
You know, I always want the names to feel like they have a resonance as well. With the kind of books in the world I set it in, I often like if it has a resonance that not all readers might pick up on, but if you come from some of these cultures and these histories, you might appreciate them. I also like a good hidden thing, like I called, there's like a scene in the first book I ever wrote where this lion guy is talking about like trash piles, and I called him, like, he's supposed to be like a sanitation minister, but I called him the father of the trash pickers in Arabic. And so it's like, some people will get that and others won't. But yeah, I love finding names, and even that, like going back in the historical stuff, I named the antagonist in my Amina book Falco Palamenestra, and I got like a few angry emails from people who were like, no, Palamenestra is not an Italian name. I said, well, you don't know. I went down the hole. That area was Greek until the 1200s, and this would have been like a symbiotic relationship between Greek and Italian, and nobody bothers me anymore or talks to me at all. But no, I think what you said, it really, if something's not working, that a name is a strong indicator of a character and everything about it.
Names are so important in fantasy. Yeah. This is going to be our last question. I'm so sorry, but what?
Well, first, thank you both for coming out. And Joe, I'm jealous of you with your wild imagination and the great worlds you create. But Shannon, I'm like you, and I want to do research, and I never feel like I have enough. What tells you, okay, I've got enough, time to get going?
Probably when the one professor of early, Vedic belief was like, there's no more information. I can't tell you. There's just, no one will know if you made that up because no one knows. That was a sign that it was time to wrap the project up. But I tell people this, I have an approach towards research that I don't always recommend doing unless you are very much these books are set in our world, and I'm thinking wow, how did people get along in the era of the Crusades? Better not, again, not allowed to curse, better not mess this up. Yeah. So I think there's a different level of whereas if I was writing a mythic retelling, I think there's more room for creativity. But don't get bogged down in the research. I would draft and I would research, I would draft and I would research. Because if you spend 2 days looking up one fact, it will get cut when you're doing your edits. So be kind to yourself.
And speaking of getting cut, you got to rack up. and I just want to say, my boss, who's actually named Amina, one of my bosses, right there, Amina. When I saw this book, I thought of her. But I want everyone, if you could thank our authors one more time. Thank you so much.